Hello, this is Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt of the Christ School of Theology. Happy to be with you today. We are talking about medieval semantic theory, and last time we distinguished among three senses of supposition: personal supposition, which refers to individuals; material supposition, which refers to linguistic entities; and simple supposition, which refers to natures or forms, or more deflationary, whatever makes it the case that these things hang together. Okay. Now I'm going to show you an argument. An argument in the Middle Ages. They were very interested in the examination of arguments, and they knew that a valid argument, just as we know, is one in which the premises, where it's not possible for the premises to be true and the conclusion false. So they knew that. But there were certain arguments that it seems like they should follow because the premises are true, and yet the conclusion seems to be false. So what's wrong with these arguments? Well, the medieval theorists were not ready to chuck the laws of logic, of course. So what did they do? They went in to try to understand the semantics of the premises and the conclusion, try to understand how it could be that a putative false conclusion followed from true premises. So my first argument I have here, I've already put it on the board: homo est dignissima creatura, sortes est homo, ergo sortes est dignissima creatura. Now that looks like it would follow, right? Homo est dis, sortes est this, therefore this is nice. AAA, right? I. Sortes est this. Well, what does this mean? Well, homo means human being. A human being is the most dignified of creatures. Socrates, sortes is the word for Socrates. I would say sortes is Socrates. Socrates is a human being, therefore Socrates is the most dignified of creatures. Well, Socrates was a pretty great guy, but I'm not sure he's the most dignified of creatures. The premises are true and the conclusion false. What went wrong? Well, they had it figured out. They said, well, here we have simple supposition, right? Here we're talking homo is the most dignified of creatures. So here where homo has simple supposition, that is the nature of man. Human nature is the most dignified of creatures. You get into genus and all of these things. We'll keep it very simple. Socrates is a human being. Well, there we have personal supposition. And thus, this does not follow because homo is equivocating on senses of supposition. In the major premise, homo has simple supposition. In the minor premise, homo has personal supposition. And therefore, the false conclusion is not really following as a false conclusion from the premises. Why? Because we don't have a true argument at all, because when you have four terms in an argument, you don't have an argument, right? A good syllogistic argument, you have to have three terms. You have to have the major, then you have to have the middle, and then you have to have the minor. But the middle now equivocates on senses of homo, and so you don't have an argument with three terms. Let's take another one. I hear some of you out there saying, oh, this is the most fun thing I've ever done. So let's do currens est participium. You can imagine saying that to your friends. It means running is a participle, right? Good old sortes. Sortes is running. Oh boy, there you go. We would think we'd have a middle there. So sortes, we can all say it together, est participium. Socrates is a participle. Well, of course, Socrates is not a participle. We're trading on senses of occurrence here. In this sense, we are talking about material supposition in the major premise, because we are identifying running. It's talking about running. The word running is a participle, right? Over here, Socrates is running. So now running here is suppositing for a being that runs. That's material supposition. And then, of course, we try to get the conclusion to follow, and it doesn't follow. Currens in the major premise supposits materially, and in the minor premise personally, and therefore we do not have an argument. Now, they use this kind of way of going about things in Trinitarian disputations as well. And particularly when you get into the notion of the divine essence generating. You can say that the divine generates, but are you using that as simple supposition, or are you using it as material or as a personal supposition? Well, how did they determine whether a supposition is material, personal, or simple? And according to the medieval semanticists, for most thinkers, this tends to depend upon the predicate. The phrase is a noun takes material supposition. Is a species requires simple suppositions. So they assume the talia subjecti qualia predicata permisserenti, which means that such subjects as the predicate permits. Okay. By the 14th century, the phrase "this term X" is used to show material supposition. Now, if that's not complicated enough, and of course it's not complicated at all, but now we're going to get complicated, we have to distinguish between senses of personal supposition. So, there was discrete supposition, which pertains to singular terms, and a common supposition to general terms. There is common supposition dividing between determinate and confused supposition. And then we have confused supposition dividing between confused and distributed supposition and then just merely confused supposition. I've always loved that one. Merely confused supposition. So you have to distinguish confused and distributed supposition from merely confused supposition. Determinate supposition is to supposit for one thing, not many, but not a particular one thing. Even though it's called determinate supposition, it supposits for one, not many, but not a particular one. Discrete supposition supposits for a particular one. However, for Occam and Burleigh, this supposition, discrete supposition, is that which, when it holds of one, makes the proposition true, and when it holds of some, determinate supposition, the proposition is true. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to make sense out of this more in a way that is close to our notion of a quantifier. Peter of Spain, who became a pope, said, "Confuso suppositio est acceptio termini communis pro pluribus mediante signo universali," which is confused supposition is the acceptance of a common term for many, right, mediated by a signal universal. It is confused and distributed when it supposits for all. And this was all so unclear that the tradition moved to talking about the descent and ascent of supposition And this was all very interesting to read some of these things. So I'm going to come back. I got one more lecture on medieval semantic theory. So you're not going to want to miss that. Come right on back to the next video. I'm Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt of the Christ School of Theology. Thank you.